Hello and welcome to another Digital Photo Mentor Live. Apparently, I'm off center. Let me get back over here in center. And this week we are working on people photos. So I've got some great submissions from a few of you. And we're going to be doing a little bit of a shortened session tonight, which is also why I started a couple of minutes early because I have an event to go attend. A fellow that I know who is an Indigenous photographer is doing a talk for one of the local camera clubs on how to respect Indigenous people at powwows. And since that's something that I've actually written about, if you could share the link to that article, Rob, about cultural sensitivity at different events, I thought I better go attend this one because I want to make sure that I am giving good advice. So we're going to be we're going to be doing this one speed round tonight. So this is going to be speed editing, and I'm going to kind of cut right into editing, and I'm not going to do a lot of the preamble that we usually do. And Rob is talking about smoke on the water because I was humming it just a moment ago. So I see a lot of regulars. Danelle, Marguerite, Todd is back from his vacation. Jim, yes, thank you very much for inviting us for coffee, Jim. I wish we could have taken you up on that offer. Hopefully next time. Who else is here? Karen is back in the regular time zone, so she's able to be here. So I'm going to jump right in and head over to Lightroom. Here we go. So these are the images that I've pulled to work with today. And I'm going to do these fairly quick. And I see that Jim has sent me a new image. So Jim had sent a couple of images and I asked him to send me the raw file. So this was the one that he sent, which was a JPEG. And that was the raw file that he started with. So I want to work with that one because I want to show you what I would do with this file, Jim. Before I do that, though, I want to just talk about Sheila's. Maybe I'll hold on because I don't see her yet. Let me know if Sheila Green pops in, Rob, because I want to talk about hers. And this one here, you said this one is a scan, Jim. So is the original image in color and then you converted it to black and white? If so, I'd love for you to send me the original because we might actually do a session on working on scanned images. Maybe people that have older photos and so on can submit them to me. We did a restoration one. So if you have it in color, send it to me in color. And I know you work in Luminar Neo, so I want to just show a couple of quick edits in this one that I would do to punch it up a little bit. So let me just get out of here and I'm just going to open it from Lightroom because it's easier. Okay, so I'm going to take this one into Luminar, okay? And I'm just going to show you how to punch up the black and white a little bit because the issue with this one is it's really flat. So that's why I'm asking for the color image, because if I had the color image, I could actually do some adjustments of the tones, right? For example, if his scarf is red and his jacket is blue, I can change one and make the red darker or the blue darker so that they're not the same tone. See how everything is sort of really sameness? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do in here, and I'm going to do this, like I said, speed mode here this week, is I'm going to just crop it a little bit. So I want to get rid of some of this white bit on the side here. It also looks a little bit crooked, and I'm looking at this line here, okay? So when you're straightening images, always look at stuff that's vertical but in the center of the image, because things on the edge might be affected by perspective, right? Converging lines. So always check lines that are in the middle of the image, specifically for verticals. Okay, I didn't crop that enough. Let me just go a tiny bit more here. I just want to get rid of that white bit on the side. I want to get rid of the little bit more again. Holy cow. Okay, one more time. Let's just go stream. There we go. Okay, so now I've got this white sky up here. We can worry about that later. But what I really wanted to do is talk about contrast, okay? And again, if I have the tones from the color image, we can really shift it. But what I want to do is I'm looking at, okay, the histogram here. I'm looking at where is there pure white in the image. I'm using the J key to turn on the clipping warnings. Right now, there's some blacks clipping, but nothing white. So I'm going to bring the whites up until I start to see this area clipping. So I'm not worried about the sky, because I want to get more contrast. Okay, see that? Then I'm going to give them a little more black. I'm going to darken the shadows instead of lightening the shadows. And I'm going to punch up overall a little smart contrast, right? So let's just see what that's doing. Right? See the difference? Brightening him, right? Punching that up a little bit. I might even go higher on the whites, right? See how that's making a big difference? Right? I could also mask it off a little bit, like if I don't want it applying as much to the background, okay? So I could take a brush and erase it, say at 50%, and create sort of almost a natural vignette. Okay, so I'm just erasing it from the outer parts here. See that? So now it's affecting the inner parts more, like so. So see how it's created sort of a natural vignette? There's the before and after. And I found that adding some clarity, which you don't find in Luminar, but you'll find structure, which is similar, also gave him a lot more contrast. Okay, again, I don't want to add that to the background. I want to add that to him. So I'm going to use, let's do object select. I could have used mask AI as well, okay? But I want to select him and make sure that this effect only goes on him, okay? So I'm adding structure. Might have been better to choose human. Let's go back here. I'm going to go with mask AI instead. It should come up with human, and then I can just choose human. I was hoping it would pick him as the whole object. Come on. It's not playing into my speed editing. Luminar is not going as speedy with the mask AI as I had hoped for. Lee is in the house. Danelle is in the house. Might be an interesting photo to try colorization. Okay, apparently it doesn't like mask AI. Let's just go back to object AI. You know what? I'm going to do it simple here because I'm going to do a quick radial gradient. Oh, looks like I did get most of him with the object. Anyways, the idea I want to get here is I want to put it on him and not on the background. Okay, so I would erase it carefully from the background. Okay, because I don't want to add contrast and clarity to the background. I want to add it to him. Right, I want him to have more punch. Okay, see what that's doing. Okay, so just a quick before and after to see what that does to give him a lot more punch. I'm adding a quick vignette here. Right, I drag the feather slider down, and then I'm just going to position it so that it's around him, and then drag the feather back up. That looks pretty good. See how there's this natural gradation of the light, so dark to light in the center, and it falls into him. Okay, I might even add a bit more punch. We can use another tool down here to add contrast, super contrast. I want some contrast in the midtones. Okay, again, I want that mostly on him. Okay, so I could do, let's try the mask AI again, this one. There we go, human. Okay, and then if I want to do any more, I'll just copy it. So see how that's punching him up as well. Okay. And we could add even more contrast. I love contrast. I can't tell you how much contrast. You can't have too much contrast in a black and white. Okay, so now I'm just going to do a curve. Maybe a little too much bright here. And once again, now it's starting to break down because I only have a JPEG here. Okay, so if I had a larger file, it would work a little better, but you can see from the original to here what's happening with the amount of contrast. Okay, so when you do a black and white conversion, the thing that you want to keep in mind is that you want the tones to make the image come alive in terms of feeling three-dimensional, right? So if we compare the original to this one, let's just take a look here. Okay, can you see the difference? Okay, so I've cropped in a little bit to get rid of that stuff on the side, and done some contrast enhancements to really bring him out of the image. Okay, I'm interested to know more about the history of this photo. Jim, he says it was not in color. Okay, so this is all you've got to work with. Then this is about as good as you're going to get with this type of thing. If you have the option to scan as TIFF in 16-bit, do that. Okay, so scan in 16-bit TIFF with the highest resolution that your scanner has, and you'll start with a better original image. Okay, so this one here, oops, where did I go? Apparently I put myself into screensaver mode. Oops. So let's see, this one here, if I look at the original one, it's 51 pixels, so the pixel size is good. But I think if you scan it as a TIFF, you'll just have, excuse me, a bit more information. Okay, let's move on. Speed edit.
Hey, Darlene, I think you need to add your screen.
Oh, I lost my screen. Oh,
Yep.
that was weird. Okay, thank you. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's move on to the speed editing. Okay, so I've got one of Lee's, one of Danelle's. Let's do this one of Danelle's, and she's working in Lightroom. So I'm gonna do again another speed edit here. Lightroom is doing some odd things, and I have a brand new computer. Oops, now why do I have that showing? I have a brand new computer sitting in the other room that I haven't plugged in yet. So I want to just see. I haven't done that yet because I was slightly afraid to mess things up. So I'm looking at the camera profiles as usual. I actually don't mind standard. So this is her camera standard. Now I want to check for clipping. There's actually nothing clipping here, which is interesting. I'm going to darken the whole thing a little bit and bring the highlights down because I think there's detail here, right? But I don't want to do that so much that it darkens him too much, okay? So I'm going to work on him and the background separately, okay? I'm going to level this because if this is the horizon here, it's crooked. So I'm going to use the ruler and just draw it along the horizon to get it straight, okay? And that solves another problem here, which is that pole that's in front of him. So just by straightening, we get rid of the pole, okay? And I could come down and get rid of the sky, but let's just see how it goes here. Now I'm going to use a preset that I created, okay? So you could create this. It's lighten subject and darken background. So just by hovering over it, you're going to see what it does, okay? See what that does right there? I also have lighten subject, darken background, and darken sky, okay? And all I did was I created these masks for each of them, background, subject, and sky, and then I applied some settings, okay? So now that I've got them all selected, I can go and edit any of them, okay? So if I want the highlights darkened more than the overall, I can do that because I just want this water brought down, okay? Now I can check the sky. The sky has been darkened quite a bit, so that's good. I might add a little more blue into the sky. Let's see what it thinks is the sky. That's good. And then let's check him. Okay, so what is it doing? Definitely darkening him or brightening him. I'm going to go even farther. Okay, and I want to make sure that I'm not clipping anything. No, I'm good. So see how the shadows, brightening that is going to help here. Okay. The other thing that I could do is that his face is really dark when I can use a color to do that, right? Let's do a vignette as well. So I'm going to use a preset for that too. Okay, so dark edge medium is a preset that I created, and it just pulls in these effects here. So all it does is adjust these sliders, right? If I drag the feather down, you can see what it's doing. I might adjust it a little smaller. So that's why I drag the feather down to 0 so you can see the size and the shape of the vignette. And in Luminar, you can reposition it. You can't in Lightroom. It's always based on post-cropping. So the edge post-crop, right? I want to darken his shirt a little bit as well. And so I'm going to do, let's do the color thing first. Let's do this. I'm all over the place here. Let me do the shirt first. Okay, so I'm going to do select people. And when you select a person, clothing is one of the options. We'll see that in a minute. There's also something on the back of his shirt here that I might, no people found. Well, that's interesting. It doesn't recognize him as a person. Interesting. Okay, let's do select object then. Okay, so select object. If you draw over it, it should find the edges. Let's see how close we get. No. Let's try adding to it with a brush and auto mask. So it should find the edges of the shirt for me. There we go. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to bring some of these highlights down a little bit more. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's bring the highlights down and darken that shirt. See that? So just bringing it down. So even though the shirt is white, you need to have some gray in the shirt to make it have texture and not just be blown out, right? Because a white shirt that looks like that, no detail, right? Same with a black shirt. A black shirt needs highlights to give it texture, okay? So you always want to make sure that you're not clipping and even darken a little bit more, okay? So now he's really starting to stand out, okay? Now I could go in here and do select color range and work on color range that way. Or I could do it using the tool down here, which is now called the color mixer, and use point color, right? We can just brighten orange, which I know is going to be in skin tone. But by going with a mask instead, and I'm going to choose color range, and then I'm just going to draw a little box over his skin, and let's just see how close we get. That's pretty good, okay? So it's selected. I don't want his hair so much, so I'll just bring that down a little bit. It's selected everything that's in that range of skin tone, okay? Now I have a lot more options, okay? So now I can actually even lower the texture and make them a little bit less wrinkly, okay? I can boost the exposure a little more. I can take the saturation out because I feel like he's a little orange, right? Or we can give him a little more pink, right? Yeah, I feel like he's orange, so I'm just going to give him a little bit of magenta. There we go. And I'm going to call this one skin. See what that's doing? Really flattering for him, okay? Now, because it didn't find people, if I want to do teeth whiten, okay, I'll have to do the same kind of thing. I could do find object and then just paint his teeth, and let's see if it finds his teeth. Pretty close, right? So then I can brighten his teeth, bring the saturation down a little bit, which takes that yellow out. Come on with me. It's not wanting to go with me. Apparently my mouse is not working. There we go. So brighten a little bit and then desaturate. Okay, let's take a look at the overall now. There's a couple of other things that I would like to fix, but let's see the before. So really bright background draws your attention, right? He's backlit and that water spray versus now he is more of the subject. And now we see this tag flapping on his shirt. So let's try the new remove tool, right? So we can use the original content aware remove tool, which is now called remove, and it's not called cloning, or what was it called before? I think it was just called content aware fill, but the tool itself was called cloning and healing. Okay, so that's not bad. It's done a pretty good job, except for this one little spot. So what I might do is just move it up here. Okay, so I'm touching the shirt. I'm going to move it so it's not touching the shirt, and then just refresh it. And if I don't get something I like, I can use I'm holding the Alt Option key down to draw a box around the area that I want it to clone from or heal from. That didn't work either. Let's just try again. Let me try again. Okay, I'm going to do one part first. I'm just going to do the top part. If you can use the non-generative AI tools first, try that and see if it does a good job. Only use the generative, this new one, as a last resort, because what I found is that it is using credits. Okay, so in your Adobe account, you get a credit for X number of times that you can use these generative tools, right? So if you use them all the time, you're going to run out. Okay, so this is pretty close, right? And I haven't used the generative tools. Look at that. That's believable, okay? So if you want to use the generative tool, you certainly can, right? Let me just reset and I'll show you that option. Right? It works the same way. You just have to check it off and then paint over whatever it is you want to remove. Make sure you get it all and a little bit around. You want to go around the subject as well. Gives you a chance to refine your mask and then just click apply. Once you've done that, it'll give you 3 options, just like in Photoshop. Rob, could you please share a link? Please share a link to the video that I just did on these this Lightroom update. Okay, so here are the 3 options right here. I just realized I don't have my mouse pointer on. There we go. Okay, so here's our 3 options. That's number 2. And that's number 3. So number 3 is very similar to what I just had using the non-generative tool. So honestly, like I said, you can get away without using that. Okay. I would probably also use the same tool, but non-generative again, to either minimize or remove the brightest highlights on the water. Okay. If I want to just minimize, all I have to do is bring the opacity down. Okay, so they're still there. It's that nice bokeh, but not so bright. Same here. There's a white spot on the horizon that's kind of bugging me. So let's see what that does. I want to get rid of that one. It's not doing the best job here. I'm going to drag my mouse over here. Tell it I want green. Okay, so I've used the Alt Option key. That's not working. I could switch to clone. So remember, there's other methods of this tool as well. Okay, so you don't have to use the generative. Let's feather it out a little more. Oh, I think I need a bigger one. Okay, so it's trial and error. I want to make a bigger brush stroke. There we go. And then I can use the clone tool or the healing tool. This one is healing. See, that's doing a better job. So I can line up the horizon there. And then the same thing here. I don't necessarily want to remove this because it looks like it's a boat or something in the background. I definitely don't want his hair. Okay, so you can set where it's cloning or healing from. Okay. It needs to be a little darker. And I just want to minimize it. So I don't want to get rid of it. So you can lower the opacity a little bit. There, we're getting close. See that? So it's taken me 2 or 3 different spots. I probably could have done it in one with the generative tool. But again, I didn't necessarily feel the need to use it. Right? So I just wanted to minimize. Okay, there's the before and after. You're welcome to know. Yes, try and replicate what I have done here. I'm sure he'll be very happy with that. It's a great photo. And of course, when you're out boating, you can't really plan what kind of thing is going to happen with the lighting, right? But the fact that you've got him backlit is actually really good because you can work with that, as you can see here. Okay. Check my private messages, Rob says. Okay, one moment. My mouse is going crazy on me. Yes. Okay. Rob is reminding me to mention our photo tours. Japan is now full. So if you've already booked to come with me to Japan, awesome. I'll see you there. If not, there's a wait list. And the only other one we have left is we have Morocco spaces left. And that one we have to get booked by about the next 3 weeks, or we are going to have to cancel it if we don't have enough. And also Cuba in January. So I'd love to see some of you come to Cuba with me. Okay, let's move on to the next one because I've got a Luminar edit for Lee. And I'm gonna hold on to Sheila's because I haven't seen her yet. Have you seen Sheila Green yet? Maybe it's the wrong time zone for her. Profiles confuse the person. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Lee. Can you explain? I'm going to take yours over to Luminar. Now, on this one, I am going to take the source file, okay? Because if I go edit in and send it to Luminar, it's going to make a copy. But because she sent me the raw file, I'm actually going to choose export and choose open source file, which means it's going to open the raw file in Luminar. So I'm still operating as a plugin from Lightroom. So when I'm done, it will bring it back to Lightroom. But in this way, I get the raw file. Okay, so you'll see what I mean in a second here. See how it says develop raw here? If I'd gone the other way, it would not. All right, so let's start there. Okay. Camera profiles are found here. Okay, so if that's something that you were confused about, Lee, Sheila is here. Okay, awesome. If I have time after this one, I'm going to do a couple of tips for you. So what I like about this is we can choose the camera profile. Let me see. Portrait definitely punches her up. Ooh, even camera standard. I like camera standard. Okay, so I'm going to go with camera standard. I'm guessing this is a Canon file, right? Yeah, CR3. Honestly, unfortunately, I am not a huge fan of Canon color for portraits anymore. I used to be a Canon shooter, and I much prefer my Fuji. Okay, so what's happening here is I can see the floor, and she's used what's called seamless paper, and it's rolled up, and you can see it at the bottom here. Okay, so we could solve that really easily by cropping, or you could try and use the generative tools to fix that. But I think ultimately I'm going to crop. But let's finish what we're doing in here. Okay, so we've got camera standard. I'm talking really fast and I'm choking myself up. I'm going to turn the clipping warnings on. Okay, so you can see I've got a little bit of the whites clipping. That's okay. I'll pull that back. And I want to make sure to add some blacks. Okay. So now we got a little bit of her hair clipping, but see how that's given us a lot more contrast. Okay. The image was a little underexposed, Lee, about maybe a stop underexposed. So if we look at the original, it's a little on the dull side. Okay. That's a hint of an underexposure. And I think she's a little bit pink, but let's try the targeted tool here. So under color, we'll find white balance and the targeted tool. And I'm going to click on her dress because I'm assuming that it's white. Okay, so do you see what just happened? It changed these numbers. Okay, I'm going to do an undo. So we're at 56, 11, and 12. Okay, so let me do that again. Now we're at 56 and 3. Okay, so it basically dialed out a bunch of the magenta because she was really pink. Okay, and I would agree with that. I could give her even a little bit more yellow. Okay, that looks good. Optics, transform, we don't need to worry about. Noise reduction, we don't need to worry about. I will turn on autochromatic aberration removal just in case. And I'm still checking to make sure those highlights aren't clipping. There we go. There's another way I just thought of to fix that background as well. So I'm going to do that next. Okay, I'm going to close up the landscape tools and head right down to the portrait tools. Okay, so each of these little sections here, you can just toggle open and closed, and then you don't have to scroll so far. Okay, so I'm going to go to face, face AI, there we go. And I'm going to do face light, and I'll come back to that in a minute because I'm going to darken the overall exposure. So I'm going to light her face quite a bit. Let's go like 50. Okay. Actually, I have another idea too. Let's make sure we can see her eyes. That's a serious zoom in. Aha. Can you see? Can anybody see the challenge here? Can anybody see the challenge? What's happening here? Her glasses are in focus, not her eyes. Okay. Not her face. So when you have a person with glasses, you have to be very careful. You get their eyes in focus, not the glasses. Okay. Okay, now look what's happening when I choose the eye color brown. Okay, does a really nice job. Eye enhancer. I don't want to whiten the eyes because then it makes her look like a scary monster. Maybe just a tiny little bit. Dark circle removal. That seems to help a little bit under that eye. We could improve her eyebrows. We can darken her lips if we want. Like so. Let's do that. Okay, so we can see the before and after that's doing on there. Then after I've done the face light, I go back to develop and then just darken the whole image a little bit, right? Because what it does is it actually adds a vignette to the whole image. Maybe not quite that much. I'm going to go back here and lighten her face even a little bit more. So you're adding light to the face, right? And then darkening the whole image. Okay, so in effect, what it's doing is bringing her face out more and less of everything below and around. Okay. Let's continue with the portrait tools. We can do skin. There we go. I don't think she needs it. She's got pretty good skin, but let's just do some skin smoothing. She hasn't got any shine. That looks pretty good. And now that I'm backing out, I see her whites of her eyes look a little too white. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that edit and dial the eye whites down or off. That was my first instinct, was to leave it off. Okay. Now the last one I'm going to do is bokeh. Okay, so the bokeh is my idea around fixing that background. So if I do bokeh blur, let's just see what it comes up with. It'll give it a minute. Takes it a minute to find the background. You can see it says down here, applying. That's something new in Luminar. Now you see sort of the thing at the bottom. It didn't get it quite right, but it's pretty good. Okay, all I'm going to do is bring the depth correction here and increase this blur quite a lot. Let's see how it's doing. I can just do a blur up here, fix that. We can actually fix her hair, her flyaway hair as well with that, and just defocus it. It's not defocusing as much as I would like, but it is solving a little bit of that background. See how it's solving that issue of the highlight of this thing on the bottom here. I can actually make it a bit bluer. We could brighten the background. Oh, it's not getting all of it. That's the problem. It's not getting all of it. Let's make sure we have a defocus down here. Yeah, it's not getting all of it. All right, let's try a blur. Okay, so let's try under creative. Let's use the blur. Let's use the Gaussian blur. I'm looking at the background. I want to get it as blurry as possible to try and minimize this thing down here, okay, in the background. I'm going to go with motion, and then I'm just going to mask out human. I wish it gave us the option for subject and background here in Luminar that it does in Lightroom, right? Question. So human, and then of course I need to invert it. Okay, and then I'm going to do it one more time. So I inverted it and copied it. So motion, go all the way again, paste it in. See, that's not bad. Now we're getting rid of that background, right? It's getting a little bit of her top here, so I could go back in and mask that a little better, as well as her hand. But what I was really looking for was masking this part here, okay? So blurring this part here, okay? Couldn't I clone the purple downward? Yes, I can do that as well, Todd. Okay, so I could clone, and whenever I do such items, I would do it at a lower opacity. Okay, so I would just start here and clone down like this. So yes, I can do that. Usually it will take a minute to kind of pop in here. Give it a second. I'll do the same over here. Just to minimize that line, right? Not doing anything. I think so. It's just making the purple a little bit evener. There we go. So yes, there's various different ways to go about this problem. Okay. We could also do a full background replacement. Okay. We could drop out the background entirely. You can do the tools as many times as you want, Lee, right? If it's not enhanced enough, just run that same effect again, right? Evener. Yes, more even. Let's see. Okay. All right. I literally have about 10 minutes left, but let's take a look at the before and after. So it's definitely minimized that challenge here. I would do a better job of masking out her top so it's not blurry. But you see how it's kind of minimized the hair as well. And I didn't do a very good job of masking the blur in here. And to be honest, we don't even need to blur the other bits. So I could literally just fix this by saying, okay, let's just clear this blur and let's just paint it in where we want it. So I'm just going to paint it in here. I think it's just taking a moment to catch up to all my edits. All right, let's try that. Okay, give it a second. Okay. She looks great. Yes, I'm definitely waiting to see if my new computer solves this lag or if it's an issue with live streaming and so on. I'm going to come back to this one. I'm going to leave this one here for a moment. I'm going to apply my final thing, which is in the creative section. Where's my creative section? Closed. The last thing that I usually apply, where are we, is glow. And I usually do like an Orton effect on people and then just dial it down. So let's just see if that catches up with me. Okay, I'm going to come back here. I've got two versions of Luminar open as well. That might be part of my problem. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to do really quickly, I'm going to come back to yours maybe next week, Jim. We might have to do another session on people because I've got another great image here from Alice, right? So keep in mind, all of the things that I applied on Danelle's image would work well here also. Okay, so all of the things where I did lighten subject, darken background, right? Let me just do a quick one to show you with the preset. And again, this is just a preset that I created. Okay. My mouse is possessed right now. Can you see it doing weird things over here? Okay, so lighten subject, darken background. I'm just hovering over it. It's detecting the object. Even Lightroom's taking a long time. I'm just going to click it and see what happens. When you apply these things that are using some of the AI to find the subject, it does take a moment, but see how that is already working really well. And all I have to do to increase it is to just go back in here, right? Look at that. Really quick. So that's one preset, one quick boost, and literally I haven't done anything else. Look at that. We got a little bit of clipping on his shirt. And then I would do some retouching here to get rid of this stick, right? But there's also something on his nose, the hair. This one is another one where we're talking about depth of field and focus. The exposure on this one, let me just see, F7, right? So you have to really watch where you place the focus when you have two people in the shot, because the child that's further away is not in focus and the one that's closer is, right? So you want focus maybe somewhere in the middle to get both of them under the depth of field. Okay? That's a great little photo. Quick before and after using those presets. Okay, so presets are great for doing exactly that. Now, actually, we could probably do something really quick with gems and do the same thing here. So if I go back to develop and I've got both of them selected, I can do sync. Come on, mouse, work with me here. I can do sync. I do want the masking. Okay, I'm not cropping or doing anything else, and I'm just going to synchronize from the picture of these kids to Jim's picture. In 8 seconds, according to this, we should see what happens on this one. Okay, now it got real contrasty, but we can brighten this. Okay, and it's not so bad. Okay, look at the before and after. Look at how much he pops. Okay, we could also use the lens blur tool in this instance because the background is really busy. So we could use the lens blur tool. And if you're in Luminar, it would be the blur tool, right? Now I know you're working in Luminar, Jim. I just wanted to show this because it was a really quick copy and paste, right? And if you have an image in Luminar that you've done some edits on that you like, you can literally do the same thing, copy and paste, right? So see how that blurs the background? Quick tip here. This is something I also did in that recent video about these new tools in Lightroom. You can choose select subject by clicking here, or you can click this and choose target, and it narrows the focus for you. See how this got smaller? Okay, so now it's literally just got him in focus and not so much the background. Okay, I kind of like the octagon bokeh. Right, boost gives you more highlights in the background, and it will give you bokeh if you have any bright bits. Okay, but look what that's doing. If I take it to extreme, like he really pops out. Okay, let's just close that. That's a little too much blur, but you get the idea, right? Look at how much he is standing out now. I think I might give him a little bit more. Oops. A little more behind him in focus too. See this tool, it's not in beta anymore. It's now fully released. Okay, so there's that. But I still find that it takes a fair bit of resources. Okay. And I'm just going to lower it a little bit because it's a little overboard. But for the most part, it's done a really good job. And I'll just do a quick crop on this one. Right? Now I noticed that Jim did crop into the feet because he's missing one foot, right? In this picture, you can see that he's got one foot and he doesn't have the other foot. So Jim's answer, oh, I forgot, I got this one selected. So Jim's solution was to crop in and cut off or crop off both feet, which is actually a good solution. Okay, if you don't have both feet in the shot, that is a good option. Okay, but let me just see what happens if I go a little bit closer. And I got about 3 minutes left, and I got to run. If you're a Lightroom user, it'd be fantastic if you shared that video. Yes, thank you very much. It would be great if you shared that to your social media or your friends, anybody who you know that's using Lightroom. Okay, I'm going to go off axis cropping here. Actually, maybe I'll go a little bit tighter, keeping the same cropping. And you're definitely on the right track with that, Jim. You want to come in tight enough so that you're kind of up to the knee here. And unfortunately, this one is at the ankle, but it's definitely a better crop. Something like that. Okay, so let's compare. Come on, Lightroom. See, my Lightroom tonight is just not working with me either. Okay, so Jim's edit is on the right and my edit is on the left. Why it's blurry, I don't know, but give it a second. But what do you think of that, Jim? So you're definitely on the right track with the cropping. Just take it a little farther. And in Lightroom, you can use that select human to do the masking that I did in here, right? To give some blur to the background and to bring him out brightness wise. You can also use that face light tool in Luminar to bring out his face even more, right? But I think this is a great portrait. Is this a friend of yours? I think that he would be very happy with this picture. One other thing I wanted to mention here real quickly is, and I'm going to leave you with these final tips as well for yours and Sheila's, is just exposure, right? So if we look at the exposure on this one, it's actually f22. That's why the background is so in focus. So if you had opened up the aperture to like f4 or the biggest aperture you have, it would do two things. It would make the background blurry and it would lower that ISO, because right now you're at ISO 3200. So every time you open the aperture one stop, you get to lower the ISO one stop. So if we go f16, so from 22 we go f16, f11, f8, f5, 6, f4, that's 5 stops. Okay, 5 times. So let's go the same with the ISO, 1600, 800, 400, 200, 100. So you could have been at ISO 100, which will also eliminate the noise that you have in this image. So be really careful about the settings that you're choosing. You don't need FT22 and you don't want F22 for a portrait. You want it to have that shallow depth of field. Rob, if you could please share an article with the link to depth of field and focus. And I'm going to talk about Sheila's real quick. The same thing, because this one is F10, she's got a lower ISO, which obviously limited then the shutter speed. Okay, so the 30th of a second shutter speed made the image a little blurry. Can you see how it looks like she's moved? Okay, so she may have moved, or the camera may have moved, or your hand may have moved. So again, the same thing. If you open the aperture, right? If you open the aperture to f4, something bigger, you can have a much faster shutter speed and you'll eliminate that problem. Okay. Please share a link to the Getting Sharper images as well, Rob. Are you finding the one on aperture? And this one here, same challenge. Okay. So f10, indoors, you're automatically dealing with a low light situation indoors, and you've got a 15th of a second. So unfortunately, that is not fast enough to keep her from blurring because her hand moved, right? As well as probably the camera, okay? So those are my last 2 tips for today. What are we doing next week, Rob? I gotta run. I think are we doing water next week? Let me check my schedule. Yes, we are doing water next week. So please remember to submit your images. I hope I gave you some quick tips this week in our speed editing, and that you picked up something for your editing and also for your photography this week, right? So portrait editing is something that I love. I love photographing people, and we have a full portrait fundamentals course available on our website as well. If you could also share a link to that, please, Rob. I do have to run. I just wanted to show you my brand new medallion that I got recently, made by a fabulous Indigenous creator, Indigenous lady that created that for me using our logo. So thank you very much. Also, I have to say it, go Oilers. I have no idea what the score is, but I know there's a hockey game tonight, and I'll be checking on the score during and after my event. So thanks everybody for tuning in for this quick lightning round of people photo editing. We will do another photo editing of people soon. So submit your water photos for next week. So that's lakes, rivers, waterfalls, the sprinkler, the tap, whatever. Anything that's got some water in it, send it on over. I'll see you next week. Take care.